Hey, everybody. Welcome to CarnivorousGrama Speaks. My name is Robin Heron, and I am your carnivorous grandma. And I'm super excited to be here tonight for chatting with the docs with Dr. Nelson Vasquez.
Hello,
Hi, Dr.
everyone.
Nelson. So glad that you're here with us tonight. Let's get started. Dr. Nelson, I'm so thankful that you took me up on my offer to come over here and be interviewed on my channel, and just want to welcome you. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
So I'm Dr. Nelson Vasquez, like you said. I've been a physician for nearly 41 years. This year, graduation was back in 1984. And I'm a family medicine trained physician. I live in Florida. Originally, I'm from Puerto Rico, born and raised, but have been out of Puerto Rico for over 40 years as well. And currently, I am the medical director for Kills Health. So, all things involving Kills Health, I'm involved.
That is so awesome, Dr. Nelson. All of a sudden, I started seeing Dr. Nelson on Kilt's Mighty Tribe. I'm like, wait a minute, what's happening? Well, Dr. Nelson, that is really awesome. Of course, I love Dr. Kiltz and all the things that he's doing, the morning meetup and everything. It's really, really cool. And of course, we were just in the background talking about the new cohort for coaching that's starting up here next week. So that is very exciting. How involved were you with getting that stood up?
Pretty much my baby, Alia, and her husband are part of the team. They are integral part so I basically put it together with them, and it's been running. This is the second time around. We start next Wednesday. The link for the course, if you're still interested, is in the description of my channel, and this is also being live streamed to all Dr. Kill's channels. So, well, only to his YouTube, I think, but it's on his description as well.
Okay, and I'll make sure that I get that and put it in the description on my channel as well, because I know I saw recently that Dr. Kiltz is really pushing, and you guys, the whole team is really pushing for the growth of Kiltz's Mighty Tribe. So I'm part of Kiltz's Mighty Tribe and have been so for quite a long time. And so anybody who is interested in becoming part of, I think they're looking for like 1,000 people to be part of Kiltz's Mighty Tribe right now. So come on, be part of Kiltz's Mighty Tribe. We'll get those, make sure that the link is in the description box.
Yes.
Okay, so tell us about your background as a family physician. Where did you train? And you said you've been practicing as a family physician for 41 years.
So my graduation from medical school was almost 41 years ago. I went to medical school in Puerto Rico, and then I did my specialty training in family practice in Long Island, New York.
Okay.
So after that, spending about 3.5 years in New York, then moved to Massachusetts for 8, and I have been in Florida for 30 years.
Okay. So I guess I'm curious to know, based on what you learned when you were in medical school, what was the thinking around food and nutrition? I think 40 years ago, food was quite a bit different than what it is today, but yet and still. What did you learn in school about food and eating and nutrition?
So most medical schools, the training they give the physicians in nutrition has to do more with inpatient nutrition, IV, total parenteral nutrition, for example. I did my training in family medicine included pediatrics. We are trained in pediatrics, OBGYN, internal medicine, surgery, psychiatry, and so it's a whole person approach. And for example, yes, we did need to learn about nutrition because we were taking care of pediatric patients. I during my between medical school and my residency, I probably delivered over 50 babies.
What? That's
Pediatrics
awesome.
was always heavily a part of, even after graduating, part of my practice. Uh, so we are trained in the proper nutrition
Mm-hmm.
for babies. Now, because this was so long ago, the cholesterol story was not as cemented as it is today.
Yeah.
Normal, when I started medical school, probably nobody would bat an eye for with a cholesterol of 290. That was normal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Started to being reduced to 250 and then 200. So it was a different time, and statins came around, in particular when atorvastatin came out, Lipitor.
Mm-hmm.
That was probably the fastest growth, and to this day is the one that has made the most money for its maker, which is Pfizer. Uh, but the cholesterol story was not, I would say, as cemented. It's common knowledge now that cholesterol causes heart disease.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Right.
and I don't think it's as simple as that. There may be some risk association, but there are probably 10 things that are more important,
Mm-hmm.
and almost all of them are related to insulin resistance,
Yes.
whether it's diabetes, metabolic syndrome, obesity, and almost every changes on lipids that you can think of and think is bad, which is not only the LDL cholesterol, uh, triglycerides, HDL. It's affected by your blood sugars and insulin levels,
Right.
period. It affects those numbers more than dietary fats.
Mm-hmm.
Dietary fats and dietary cholesterol really don't have a profound effect on those numbers, and are probably not with an associated risk either.
This,
However, high
mm,
triglycerides, low HDL is.
okay. I have a question about this, the cholesterol thing. Is it more of a like a I don't know, correlation versus causation type of a thing? Because I had a conversation, a couple of conversations with Dr. Ovadia. And he did say to me that about that every person that comes into the operating table for a heart surgery has like metabolic syndrome, some level of metabolic syndrome. Well, not all or not even half of people necessarily have a high cholesterol issue um, causing them to be on the operating table.
Yeah, probably half the patients may have some elevation in cholesterol and the other half does not.
Mhm.
I think I mean, when we're talking about something that 50% is not, you cannot say really that the other 50% had the coronary heart disease because they were having high cholesterol, eating too much
Right.
cholesterol. So, however, insulin resistance And Dr. Ovadia, he puts it very well. It's not the cholesterol, the numbers, but the quality of the cholesterol
Mm-hmm.
particles. So you
Yes.
do need to do further evaluation into those numbers, but definitely insulin resistance and everything related to sugars, which, like I said, includes not only diabetes, prediabetes, metabolic syndrome, high triglycerides related to sugars,
Mm-hmm.
carbohydrates,
Mm-hmm.
low HDL. If your diet is heavy in carbohydrates, you're going to have low HDL. Okay. The only things truly that are not associated with food among the things that have a high associated risk for coronary heart disease are smoking
Mm-hmm.
and inactivity. Okay.
Mm.
Almost everything else that is related as an associated risk for coronary heart disease is sugar related, not necessarily cholesterol related. Uh, Even though there is a little bit of increased correlation uh, of the cholesterol, but there are 10 things that correlate higher with coronary heart disease.
Right.
So if you're going to be alarming in my case, I talk about my profession doing the things they do. If you're going to be alarmed by a little bit of a high cholesterol, be alarmed about the other 10 other things,
Yes. Agreed.
not just the cholesterol.
Right. So what about people who go like they go carnivore and their cholesterol skyrockets? Like,
So,
they go from normal cholesterol to way high, like in the close to 1,000 or something like that. Is
so
that
first of all, that doesn't happen on everybody,
Mhm.
even though might be the misconception, especially outside this community. Uh, some doctor, oh, keto diets, low carb diets, carnivore, it's going to kill you because of the
Mhm.
fat. Okay.
Yep.
There's really no correlation between saturated fat intake or cholesterol intake when you take away the confounders that include high triglycerides, low HDL, and all the other associated risks. Uh, there is not, I don't think there's a single cause of atherosclerosis, and I haven't read anything conclusively that there is one, but
Mm.
unfortunately, it's a multifactorial. The insulin resistance probably is the most important one
Mhm.
because when someone has insulin resistance and they have prediabetes or diabetes or fatty liver, which is insulin resistance, or obesity, which is most of the time insulin resistance, all
Yes.
these things are associated with increased risk of coronary heart disease. But it's not the thing itself, it's the insulin resistance that is important, right?
Mhm.
So it is multifactorial. Smoking, inactivity are two things that have nothing to do with diet. It's just
Right.
uh, even hypertension, which in medical school I learned that 95% of people with hypertension, we couldn't find a cause. And it's sort of true.
Mhm.
That 5% includes, you know, renal artery stenosis or some other problems in our system, whether it's kidney failure or other problems, congestive heart failure. But 95% of the time, unfortunately, most of those are because of chronic excessive carbohydrate consumption, which then causes the hypertension.
Yes.
Now, I had not had any problems with my blood pressure until I hit 58 or probably 57, about to be 58. And then my blood pressure increased. Ended up having a stroke that same year.
Wow.
Uh, Fast forward a few years later, when I started a strict ketogenic diet and then went carnivore. When I went carnivore, 7.5 months later, I had tapered off completely my medications for hypertension, and
Wow.
I was at very high doses. How
Wow.
did it happen? Well, the problem was not the salt, by the way, because I have loads of salt nowadays. The problem
Right.
was the carbohydrates that were causing the hypertension, and now my blood pressure runs usually 115, 120, and no longer have to take blood pressure medications.
That's so funny, Dr. Nelson, because I didn't have a heart attack, but I was having these headaches. And I thought I better start checking my blood pressure because my father has had chronic hypertension ever since I can remember. And so just went to, like, I would at work, they had these blood pressure cuffs. So I just went to work and I checked it, and my blood pressure was creeping up. Somehow I had the thought that if I could go on keto, that I could eliminate that hypertension, and I did with the keto diet. So there were so many other things that changed with carnivore, but with keto, I was able to completely eliminate hypertension, get off blood pressure medications, and get rid of those headaches and stuff. So that
Yeah.
was interesting to me.
Well, first of all, headaches were a good thing for you.
Mm-hmm.
They were an early warning system.
Yes.
Unfortunately, most people with hypertension have no symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I could feel my blood pressure being high. As soon as it started having problems, I didn't feel well. I did have headaches, but most of the people with hypertension don't have the early warning system. And so I consider myself lucky in that sense, because then I
Mhm.
would know when something is not right, which in the past 3 years, uh, a couple of times I haven't felt good. And on one or two occasions, my blood pressure may have been a little bit high. Most of them due to some stress or not sleeping well,
Mhm.
but it's almost always normal. Uh, we do have some genetic predisposition to things, okay?
Okay.
And
Mm.
me being Hispanic from Puerto Rico, I know my people have a higher incidence of hypertension. So does the African American community.
Yes.
So most doctors will see someone like me or someone like you. Oh, yeah, it's family, it's genetics, and here's your blood pressure medication. We don't need to worry about anything else.
Right.
Which, well, yes, we do have genetic predisposition, but that doesn't mean we cannot influence
Do
that.
you
And
think
I
that a
have
lot of
done
the
it.
genetic predisposition comes from the genetic food traditions? You know?
Well, there is genetic predisposition for many of those things, including hypertension. But yes, probably the most influential thing is the cultural foods, right? And our traditional food in Puerto Rico is a plate full of carbs.
Yeah.
Probably 90% of the food in the plate is going to be carbs,
Mhm.
because a full plate in my house, even when mom was trying to feed us healthy, would be rice and beans
Yep.
with some potatoes or other roots that we have plenty of different ones that we eat in the Caribbean, and some lettuce and tomatoes, and maybe there will be a chicken thigh, a little bit of meat
Mhm.
or a cube steak. uh, that probably is not the best diet to be for the rest of your life when you may have some genetic predisposition. So yes, the
Right.
way you eat is probably because your parents fed you that way and their parents fed them that way.
Mhm.
And then throughout the years, the families get this disease or that disease and may have been influenced by the culture and diet and not necessarily your genes.
Very interesting. I want to just go back to this the conversation about the cholesterol for just a moment. And one of the things that you mentioned is something that is very interesting, and we talk about it a lot on the Hey Sister Girl show on Monday nights about the fact that cholesterol, the upper limits for cholesterol have consistently been lowered over the years, and now I think it's down to like 180 with with a multi-billion dollar multi-billion dollar statin industry, of course. And so I'm just curious to know, like, what has happened around heart disease at with the implementation of statins. Has it been any benefit at all to heart health?
Well, it depends how conspiratorial you want it to be. the, so the truth is this, and you can. I have a book next to me that has a graph. I'm not going to go and try to find it right now, but that superimposes food guidelines in the United States with the incidence of diabetes,
Mhm.
obesity, all cause mortality. And when you plot those in the same graph, the amount of meat in the United States, the meat consumption, red meat, has steadily decreased throughout the years, especially since the 80s. Okay.
Yeah.
Remember the first guideline, well, not the first, but the most famous guidelines came in 77. And from there, every 5 years, there are new versions of the same thing
Mhm.
coming on. And they started recommending low fat, high
Yeah.
amount of grains, complex carbohydrates, 6 to 11 servings might be the current recommendation. And now we have recommendations of even, Fruit Loops once in a while is healthy. So, but when you plot the incidence of diabetes, it's going up.
Right.
Prediabetes, all cause mortality, cancer. Okay. So we can show that the campaign of eat less meat and eat low fat has worked because we're eating less fat, yet we're having more hypertension, diabetes, prediabetes, fatty liver disease is a pandemic nowadays.
Yes.
As
Right.
short as 15 years ago, I never saw anyone with fatty liver, with the exception of the ones that I already knew that were full blown alcoholics.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Because the
Mhm.
process is the same. It looks the same on the, there's almost no way to differentiate a fatty liver from alcohol from a fatty liver from chronic excessive carbohydrate consumption. It's
Yes.
almost impossible to differentiate just by the ultrasound and the look of it. But for the past 15 years, prior to maybe 2010, 2009, prior to that, the only patients I saw with any type of fatty liver were alcoholics.
Right.
Okay.
Mhm.
So all related to insulin resistance, and they all have a common cause, so to speak. So carnivore, how does carnivore help? Well, you're eliminating all the carbohydrates basically. You're eliminating all the ultra processed food, the vegetable seed oils, or the sugar. I mean,
Yep.
if you're doing carnivore right or a low carbohydrate diet, you don't have to be strict carnivore, but most people that need a lot of healing find when they go carnivore, it does make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I was just talking to somebody recently that was telling me about a family member that recently passed, and that person never drank, you know, tried to eat healthy, I don't know, ended up with cirrhosis of the liver, fatty liver disease. And, basically the same disease process that would have happened if this person had been a full-blown alcoholic. Their
Exactly
all
the
the
same.
organs shut down, everything, just the same exact disease process as somebody that I knew that died from chronic alcoholism. Um,
Any patients I have seen, like I said, I can trace it back to about 15 years. Any patient that I have seen in the last 15 years that needed a liver transplant or was in the list for a liver transplant,
mhm,
100% of them have been because of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease.
wow. This was unheard of, like, years ago. This is
Yeah,
literally unheard
yeah,
of. So it it comes with the rise, and as you mentioned, increase in carbohydrates, less meat, less fat. I mean, literally no fat, and replacing sugar, replacing the fat with sugar. And then the ultra processed food and and seed oils. I
yeah.
mean, over the last, what, 40 years, around 40 years is when we started to see this big transition to ultra processed and processed foods. I think, I was supposed to graduate in 84. I didn't graduate on time. But anyway, I was supposed to graduate in 84. But right around that time, just before then, they started to come out with all these TV dinners and, quick and easy meals for for families and stuff. The Hungry Man dinners and all that stuff. So it's right around that same time.
Yep, yep. The amount, I am a little bit older than you, and I remember with my mom to the supermarket uh, in the 1960s. And yes, there were already ultra processed foods. There were boxes of cereal, but
Mhm.
you probably had a small section of boxes of cereal in the supermarket. Now you have, I mean, you go to Walmart and I think there's a whole aisle of all the types of different uh, cereals. So the
Mhm.
amount of ultra processed foods that we have didn't compare. And most of what my mom cooked at home was whole meat, whole foods. It was not out of a box. Did I have TV dinners probably in the 70s? Yes, I had some because they were healthy. They were okay. Right.
Right.
Uh, but no, it's an explosion. When you go to the supermarket nowadays, really, it's almost 99% of the food that's sold there.
Mhm.
If it comes in a box, a bag, or a can, it's probably not good for you.
Right. Yes. Absolutely. Cool. So let's talk a little bit about your personal history. Like, how did you arrive at the carnivore diet? I mean, it's so extreme, right? I assume that you're doing a carnivore. Yeah, you can tell us about that. Tell us about what are you doing and how did you get there?
So this is close to what I've been for over 40 years. Uh, when I got married, I was probably about the weight that I am right now. But throughout the years, I hit 320, 325, something like that. I don't even know to for sure because when you get that big, you tend not to want to step on a scale, and you don't want to take pictures,
Yep.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is one of the pictures where I looked the biggest, but there were probably other times when I was bigger than that. And of course, throughout the years, developed diabetes, uh, which is the worst of all the diseases, by the way, is the one that correlates the most with coronary heart disease and other cardiovascular problems. But you don't have to be diabetic to suffer from those. All these things that we have already mentioned uh, contribute to developing atherosclerosis and having a bunch of problems. Anyways, so by the way, this picture was after I had my stroke.
Mm.
Had not been even a year after the stroke. Uh, but at the end of 2022, the beginning of 2023, I was ready, and I went into a strict low carb diet, basically an Atkins sort of protocol. Atkins had the induction phase and then added carbs. No, I knew that that wasn't for me because I had done it multiple times. I've been aware of Atkins and low carb, and even suggested to my patients cutting the breads and the potatoes and all these things, cereals included. And that would be my first approach. Anyone I saw with any blood sugar problems.
Mm-hmm.
So I went on a strict ketogenic diet basically and lost about 40 plus pounds. And then on June 12, 2023, I had an eye exam that showed macular edema. And
Mm.
at the time, my daughter in law was pregnant with this little fellow.
He's getting big.
Well, he just turned 2, and but I had not seen him yet. Right, he's my only one and only grandson right now, or grandchild in general. He's the only one.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I said, okay, I'm not gonna lose my eyesight before I see my grandchild, right?
Right.
So I started researching how to make things more strict with my diet. My A1Cs at the time for a few years had been 6.7%. I was taking multiple medications for diabetes, including an GLP-1 that had not, my A1C before I started that had been 6.7, and my A1C just about 3 weeks before my eye exam was 6.7. So it had not
Mm.
helped me. It had
Okay.
not helped me to lose weight either.
Oh.
Uh, it was not until I cut the carbs that I started losing weight. The part before going carnivore that I was low carb, I was very extremely low carb. I
Mm-hmm.
was having maybe 10 to 20 grams of carbs, mostly, things like broccoli and cauliflower, things like that.
Yep.
Uh, and I had stopped having fruit a long time before I had stopped having milk because I knew it increased my blood sugar too much. So after June 12th, I start researching, and I go to the most prestigious medical education I could find, YouTube.
Right. Yes, absolutely.
So I go to YouTube University, and I find the last week of the month, basically, I find a video by Carrie Mann interviewing someone about, that had gone on a carnivore diet, had reversed depression, and had lost a lot of weight. And I said, okay, I'm going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I always say that I was aware that, people like Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson and his daughter ate only meat, but I thought they were crazy.
Right.
So I wasn't going to do that until I find uh, Carrie Man's video. And then I start looking more into this, and I find Dr. Chafee, Dr. Berry, Dr. Obadia, Dr. Kilt, and of course, you know the bunch, right?
Yes.
All
Mm-hmm.
these doctors are carnivore, and they're saying it's okay. So, all right, I jumped into it, and that allowed me to, first of all, the first big change, which to me is more important, controlling that blood sugar, the insulin resistance, is more important than even the losing weight. But I did lose another almost 60 pounds on it.
Wow. Yep.
Uh, but within 2 or 3 months, my hemoglobin A1C, about 5 months, probably 4 or 5 months, my hemoglobin A1C was 5.4, and it has been
Wow.
and it has been 5.4 since then. I've done it about 6 times, 6 or 7 times,
Wow.
and basically the average has been 5.4. I think one time there was a 5.5, and one time there was a 5.3, but all the other measurements have been 5.4. So,
That's amazing.
uh, so I've stuck with it, and I completely got off insulin. When I
Mhm.
was this big, I was using 300 units of insulin a day. Now, I have spent months at a time not taking insulin. Sometimes I go back to it because my pancreas doesn't produce much insulin nowadays. I had
Mhm.
been diabetic for almost 30 years, and there was damage.
Right.
So I've been on and off. Actually, been now for about a month without insulin. I had used insulin for just a few months, and prior to that, I had been for 6 months without it. So I measure. I have a CGM, a continuous glucose monitor, so I keep an eye on my blood sugar. That's my obsession, if you would. That's what I need to control uh, more than anything else, because it's actually what's affecting everything else.
Yeah.
Uh, Last time I checked my cholesterol, my LDL was under 70, which was my cardiologist was happy with it. And going back to the very beginning when you were talking about, these people who get very high cholesterol numbers, that seems to happen mostly as you become leaner. Okay.
Mhm.
So it's been described as the lean mass hyperresponder group. And it seems that it becomes more noticeable as you become leaner. For most people, especially if you're still dealing with weight problems, your cholesterol numbers might not get that out of whack. Your total cholesterol and your LDL in particular, if you're lean and you're following a very low carbohydrate or carnivore diet, then they will they can get into really big numbers. And studies are ongoing. uh, doesn't seem to be really a great risk, even if
Mhm.
numbers are getting the LDL over 200 in particular.
Yeah. I think that's what I'm hearing, but I think one of the questions that I've been asked recently is, regarding long-term studies on, of course, the carnivore way of eating. And can you point me to a study that talks about the benefits, or a study that talks about the anything about it? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I'm not sure
Well,
about.
there are not many. There are
Mhm.
already a few, and more are being done, and more, you know, we're having results, but it's going to take years before we have anything seriously. But is there any study that points to, let's talk about the other extreme, right? Because we
Mhm.
talk about carnivore, which basically you're mainly having animal products or meats.
Yep.
Well, the other extreme would be absolutely no animal products. We call those people vegans. And
Mhm.
there is not exactly a wealth of study for that either. And the only thing we don't have, we're never going to have any randomized controlled double blind trials. Okay.
Yep.
Because it's impossible to do.
Mhm.
I would have to be in a group that, if it's double blind, means nobody knows what they're eating. So I'm going to know if I'm eating meat or not, right? Or if I'm having broccoli or not. So it's studies are impossible to do. And whenever you have epidemiological studies, there are a lot of confounders. You have to, and it's impossible to do also a well designed study. But even with the epidemiological studies, if in the past, for example, we've had some studies over 20 years long following, the way people eat, but they are questionnaires asking you to remember what you had last week, let
Right.
alone what you had 12 months ago. And then
Mhm.
based on that, they would say, okay, well, if you said you had a hamburger, which meant probably nowadays you go to McDonald's and have a hamburger, a pound of fries, and a 32-ounce blood sugar drink. I mean, not blood sugar, but a diabetes causing soda.
Straight. Yes.
But you had meat,
Mhm.
and that 4-ounce pre-cooked weight of the meat is blamed for everything, when at least you have to take into consideration, this is why it's a big confounder, you have to take into consideration the bun, the
Yep.
ingredients of the bun,
Yes.
the sauce, whatever it is, which is always based on seed oils,
Yes.
right? The ketchup, which is pure high fructose corn syrup. And then you have to take into consideration the 1 pound, because that's what it is, a 1 pound of French fries, at
Right.
least at least for a large fry, is about 1 pound.
Mhm.
Okay. So you're having 30 to 40 grams of carbohydrates on the fries by itself, who are fried on seed oils.
Right.
And then you have this 1 quart drink of pure sugar, 1 can of any of the major sodas, be it Pepsi or Coke or whatever, basically has about 9 to 10 teaspoons of sugar. Okay. So you
Yes.
have a meal that literally, where you're putting 70 to 100 grams of carbohydrates in one meal into your body, but it's counted in the epidemiological study as meat.
Isn't that something?
So, of
That's
course,
crazy.
meat causes diabetes, and of course, meat causes heart attacks, and of course, meat causes hypertension, and every other freaking chronic disease is blamed on that. Well, I didn't have a hamburger, I had a lasagna. That's meat.
Mhm.
Same story. You understand?
Yes.
So
Yes.
there is no good studies to prove that any diet is good. Mediterranean diets are very popular, but what's a Mediterranean diet?
Mhm.
Okay, I can say my diet is sort of Mediterranean because most of my ancestors are from around the the Mediterranean Sea, and you have 1,000 different ones.
Right.
And it is not true that they're low in meat. They all have meat.
Mhm.
So, uh, when you ask a patient, how do you eat? Oh, I have a healthy diet. What does that mean?
Mhm. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we have to go by what we've been taught, and what we have is the food pyramid that's telling us what is healthy. And so, but I think we can all look around us and see that the food period pyramid is not making people healthier. It's
Oh, it's
definitely not.
not. It is not, and it wasn't constructed with evidence either.
Right.
Okay, we talk about evidence-based medicine or recommendations. There was no evidence. A committee met, and one of the interesting things is that the conclusions, the recommendations that they had were based not on science.
Right.
They
Yeah.
were based on the fact that government had been subsidizing all the crops of corn and wheat and soy that we have in the United States, and we needed to have something to do with that also.
Right.
They
Yep.
ended up recommending 11 servings a day of grains. If you are familiar with any farmers, or if you grew up near a farm where they had animals, you know that
Mhm.
if you want to fatten them up, you give them grains. You
Right.
give them corn and soy and
Mhm.
wheat, and that's how you fatten up an animal. Well,
Right.
guess what? It's the same for us.
Exactly. Yep.
So the recommendations have worked in the sense that people have followed it over the years. Meat consumption, fat consumption has decreased, and everything else that's related to, of course, we've mentioned it 10 times already, has increased. So no,
Exactly.
it's not working that well.
No, it's definitely not working that well. I was thinking as you were talking about, kids, like, how we're expecting our children to be at their best with the foods that they're eating, and the drastic increase in behavioral problems in education, and, different diagnoses for children, that have I mean, I think about when I was a kid, that just weren't that many heavy kids. It was very rare for someone to be heavy, and now a lot of kids are heavy, and a lot of them are struggling to be their best selves because they just can't because of the foods that they're eating.
That's absolutely right. I can show you, I have a picture of my junior high school class. And even though it was heavy compared to the others, many people have trouble even picking me up out of the group, because even though I was heavier and everybody else kind of looked skinny, I didn't look that much different. Even though I was heavier, I was always one of the biggest, not the biggest of the group,
Mhm.
but uh, you see a picture nowadays, um, you find quite a few people. And obesity is not a disease by itself. It's just a result of this environment, the diets, the things that we eat that we shouldn't be eating.
Right.
Listen, of course, you're carnivorous. I am too. But if you at least eliminate all the ultra processed foods, don't have sugar, vegetable seed oils, you have whole foods and the meat of, you know, your preference,
Mhm.
you will be a lot healthier.
Right.
Now, we're tempted by all these ultra processed foods, the chocolate bars, the healthy protein bars, which are not healthy. or we're confused about a healthy meal like oatmeal. Oatmeal is probably the most terrible breakfast meal anybody can have. All the virtues of oatmeal are not based on studies, they are based on, well, if they didn't, if they have vitamins and we took them away during the processing, we'll re-add them, and we call it fortified.
Right.
But oatmeal also blocks the absorption of iron, so it doesn't matter how much
Mhm.
iron it has. It blocks the absorption of multiple nutrients.
Mm.
So whether it has nutrients or not, it doesn't matter, and it's pure carbohydrates otherwise.
Mm.
So a better breakfast will be an egg than a cup of or a serving of oatmeal. Cup of
Right.
eggs, uh, a high protein, fat breakfast with very little others. If you're healthy metabolically and you are able to have some fruit, you can have some fruit or not at all. But
Mhm.
I can't. I grew up eating fruits. I grew up in Puerto Rico. We have fruits almost 12 months of the year.
Right.
So it's not the same fruit. I wouldn't have been able to have a mango 12 months of the year. But I did have fruits available most of the year.
Yeah.
But nowadays, I couldn't really have fruit frequently because it's gonna elevate my blood sugars.
Yeah, and I think that that is, I always say, like, not everybody needs to be a carnivore necessarily, but I feel like everybody should try it. Because we really don't know what's wrong with us. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? We do not realize what this food is doing to us until we eliminate it and try to bring it back in.
yeah,
I even had, I mean, I was just talking about this earlier, how I used to always say, like, there's no such thing as a nice salad because I did not like lettuce. I thought that lettuce was the worst. I didn't like it. And come to find out, after I eliminated it and then accidentally got some, you know how you go to the burger place and they put your burger on lettuce? I thought, well, I'll just eat the burger off the lettuce. Well, I had a huge reaction to the lettuce. So it
yeah.
was doing something to me and I didn't even
Of
realize it
course.
was doing something
Of
because
course.
there was too much noise in the system.
Yeah. Well, that studies, and you hear this statistically periodically, but some studies have shown anywhere between 88 and 93% of the people are metabolically sick, right? So I call that 90% is the average there in the middle.
Mhm.
If you're one of the 90%, as opposed to the one of the 10%, it makes a difference in what you can eat.
Right.
Whatever you're doing, if you're completely metabolically healthy, and my definition for that is your blood pressure is normal without medication, your blood sugars are normal without medication, your triglycerides are under at least 100, if not 75, your HDL needs to be over 50, uh, at least over 40 for males, and your waist circumference needs to be less than half your height.
Mhm.
Whatever your height is, if you're 64 inches, 5'4", that means uh, your waist needs to be 32 inches or less.
Right.
If you fulfill those five things, you are probably metabolically healthy and you probably don't have any of the problems we've discussed. Could you develop one of them? Yes, but your risk will be tremendously decreased by
Mhm.
keeping those parameters. And most of us, 9 out of 10, are not metabolically healthy.
Right.
So you have to, the prescription strength of your diet needs to compared to the severity of your metabolic dysfunction.
Right.
So the worse you are, the more you have to. Uh, I may occasionally have a pickle, avocado, olives. Usually they don't affect me that much. If
Mm-hmm.
if I have peanuts, it I notice it. Okay,
Right.
and almost anything else, if I ever have it, I will notice.
Right.
Uh, so I need to, stay in my lane. Uh, Vegetables have their nutrient and their anti-nutrients, their toxins. All this conversation about plant toxins is real. You need
Yes.
to learn how to prepare them, though.
Mm-hmm.
If you're gonna consume it, then well-cooked vegetables, never raw. Raw vegan is probably the worst diet ever. Are there benefits to it? Yes. If you're coming from the standard American diet, you go into a raw vegan, you're gonna have improvements in health, but you probably cannot sustain that for too long.
Right.
Uh,
I have a grandson who, when he was about 16, 17 years old, he decided that he was gonna be a vegan, and I was so worried about him. Like, he was very frail looking. And also, I noticed that his affect was so changed. I mean, he always kind of is a quiet guy, but his affect was so countenance was low. You know what I mean? Like he seemed depressed all the time. And so I was quite concerned with him being a vegan, especially at his young age, just 16, 17 years old, during the time when you need fat. I was like, "You need to eat some meat. Eat some meat." I kept trying to tempt him with some ribs because that was used to be his favorite. But,
you
he
can
did end up getting back on meat, but I was worried about that. Like, he's too young to be trying that out, I felt.
you could be healthy as a vegan. You do have to learn to supplement, and there are many things that you're gonna have to supplement. You're gonna have to have omega 3s, vitamin B12, a lot of the B vitamins. Uh, Vitamin D is probably gonna
Mhm.
be low because you're not eating any fat. So if you're vegan and you supplement appropriately and you add fats, at least coconut oil,
Mhm.
olive oil, avocado oil, and maybe not have all the foods. I mean, you could be healthy, and there are people who are healthy eating a vegan diet. But you really have to work very hard to do that.
Yeah. I was happy that I could when I looked at him, I saw his picture, I was like, "He started eating meat again." I could tell just by the way that he looked that, he started eating meat again, so I was really glad about that. We're getting close to time, so, I'm just trying to see what do I might want my last questions to be here. I'm gonna have you back, Dr. Nelson, because I have a whole long list of questions. All right. So, I guess let's talk about your vision for the future. Like, what do you see for yourself, for your medical practice, for Kilt Health? Um, where are things going for you?
Well, I think you are doing your part. I am doing my part. Basically, we need to start spreading the news of the stories of healing because nobody's going to do it for you. If you think your government is coming to save you,
Mm-hmm.
it's not. It doesn't matter who is in power. They are not going to save you. Okay? They are not going to make the changes that maybe many of us think they should. And it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter which party is in control. Okay? They're not going to save you. So stop thinking that way and start If you have a story of healing, start telling people. Now, we have all probably gone through improvements in health when we went carnivore, right? Or when we went very low carb, and we start telling everybody. Many of our immediate family don't want to hear it. They might not, they might be interested in, oh, how did you do that? But once you tell them, oh, okay, well, good for you, that works for you. Uh but if you have a YouTube channel, go ahead and start talking to people. Okay,
Yes.
do your own research. It's all
Hmm.
out there for free. Okay.
Yes.
uh if you need more formal education, then you can do things like our kills health coach certification course. And we can talk a little bit more about the science, but you don't even need to do that. Sometimes it's good to get into a community. Do you have to do it? Probably not. Everybody needs that, but
Hmm.
it helps
It does.
being with others and talking to others that are doing the same things. So start telling people. Okay, if it wasn't because there are people out there, I would probably have never heard of so many already with multiple sclerosis that have put their symptoms in remission. Now, we can have a discussion about what remission, reversal, cure is. I'm
Hmm.
not claiming cure for anything, but if you can no longer be diagnosed as having something by the standard medical criteria,
Hmm.
you probably don't have it, right?
Right.
'Cause- but even if you argue, well, but you can never go back to eating like you were eating before. Uh, yes. And do you think I want to be buying apple fritters and loaves of bread? No, because I
Right.
felt terrible doing that.
Hmm.
So it doesn't matter whether it's in remission, reversal, cure. Start telling the stories of healing and do what you're doing. This is a perfect example. I wasn't in this community before. As soon as I started doing my own research, I started doing more formal research as well. It wasn't only YouTube. I became certified by Society of Metabolic Health Practitioners, by Low Carb USA. I've done probably more medical education on my own the past 2 to 3 years than I did before.
Right.
And I always, maintain the number of credits I'm supposed to maintain for my license. Uh, but start telling people we have a wonderful, all these platforms give us a voice.
Yes.
And I don't know how many subscribers you had when you started doing this, but it has grown, right?
Yes.
So
Hmm.
it doesn't matter how long it's going to take one or other people. Well, some people will go faster than others. That's a reality. But just start telling people. We
Yes.
have here. I keep seeing comments from people that I know for a fact they have reversed all the signs of diabetes and many other of these chronic, the autoimmune conditions, rheumatoid arthritis, and all the autoimmune things. Uh, you in the backstage, I mentioned Denitra Davis, who no longer has any traces of having lupus.
Right.
Lupus is a terrible disease, as probably all of them are. Uh, Anyways, start sharing, and studies are coming. They're already increasing. I mean, we didn't even touch about metabolic psychiatry. There are multiple studies on that, books being written. It is making a difference.
Absolutely. We have two questions. Do you have time?
Yes,
All
not
right.
a
Let's
problem.
bring these two questions. So Sally wants to know, how do I wean myself off 12 different medications? Help, please.
So, Sally, I'm not your doctor. You're not my patient. And when you're on prescription medications, you need to work with your doctor, but he has to have a reason to eliminate them, right? You don't need his permission to change your diet. So I think a low carbohydrate diet, at the very least, it's something that everybody should do. If you listen to Dr. Berry, he talks about the proper human diet and the spectrum, right? Uh, some people are able to tolerate certain amount of vegetables and fruit. Fine. But the first thing you need to do is make sure you eliminated sugar or ultra processed food, which includes anything that comes in a box, a bag, or a can is probably not good to eat. And among the whole foods that you should have, maybe not have the potatoes and all the roots. Okay. Now, many people think that bread and pasta are whole foods. They're not.
No.
It's made with the wheat or whatever the grain is. You need to eliminate all the grains, all the potatoes, all the roots, all the sugar. Have whole foods, and if that's not enough, go carnivore. Now, you need to be careful with certain medications. One that I always point out is if you're trying to do any type of ketogenic diet, you should not be on SGLT2 um, medications. Those are Jardiance, Invocana, Farxiga. There's another one that I never prescribed, so I can't remember the name right now. But those medications shouldn't be taken by anyone who's doing carnivore or any type of ketogenic diet. But anything else, you need to work with your doctor to decrease it. I couldn't decrease my blood pressure medications when I started. I had to wait until my blood pressure started to lower some. I was getting symptoms of dizziness, in particular, to be able to taper it down. I worked with my physician to work it down. Now, for the most part, the physician was me, but uh, but you need to work with your doctor to lower your medications. And I'm sure
Mhm.
if you show your doctor, hey, my blood pressures are coming down, do you think maybe I can take one of those off? They're going to be more than happy to do it. Uh, so I wouldn't recommend stopping them on your own because I don't know what the 12 medications are in
Right.
particular.
Agreed. And Sally, I did put in there that if you are looking for support of a coach to walk you through, you can always reach out to me on my website. So I did post that in the chat. So let me know. But I would not, I mean, as a coach, I would not be taking you off your medications. You need to work with your doctor to be able to go off of medications. Thank you. All right. Here's the second one. Smiling for You says, I'm very curious how the family reacted to your dietary changes, or is it a different experience because you're a doctor?
No, it's not a different experience. So, like I said, for the most part, even for years, I had already tried to eliminate many of the foods that affected my blood sugar. So everybody already knew I eat low carb, but of course, my low carb diet included a bunch of the apple fritters or the Snickers bars, or I wasn't being strict at any point. But as soon as I started eating meat, so yeah, there were some comments. Uh, and very often it will be noticeable because I live in Florida. I don't have a lot of family in Florida, but my son married. Uh, he was born here in the United States. She was born here in the United States, but they are from Cuban ancestry. And basically, my grandson is 50-50 Puerto Rican and Cuban. And they have a big family. And whenever we're also friends, we were friends before our kids married. So, you know, they noticed that when I would go out to eat with them or we have a big family reunion type thing, that I don't eat the other stuff. Very often I've been fasting on those occasions, so I just grab a cup of water and walk around with that. But uh, they had questions. Nobody outright told me, you know, you're crazy or you're gonna die, which sometimes would be the comments of some family members. So I guess they did give me a little bit of dispensation because I'm a doctor.
They did. Yes, they did. One more. Um, Chris wants to know, are oxalates necessary at all?
Necessary for what? Most oxalate containing foods end up causing problems. One of the ways to control the release of an overload of oxalates is consuming something with low levels of oxalate to try to keep it in check, so to speak. Uh, I definitely would refer you to Sally Norton and her book. I have it right there. Yeah, I have it. Uh, she's been with us a couple of times with the Kill Spiny Tribe and our live stream. So, uh, but I don't understand completely the question. Are they necessary? No, they're not necessary. They are not a nutrient.
All right. I also want to say welcome to new member Aries 66. Thank you for joining the membership tribe. All right, so that's all of our questions for tonight. Dr. Nelson, thank you so much for being with me tonight. I really appreciate it. I definitely would love to have you come back on. I got a whole bunch more questions for you, and I certainly think that it would be great to delve into the mental health aspect of this conversation at some point. So let's get you back on.
Thank you
And
for having me.
yes. All right, you guys, that's going to be it for tonight. I will see you guys back next weekend, Saturday night at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time for Carnivorous Grandma Speaks. All right, everybody. Good night.
Have a good night.